each and every day now. Hey, hey, if I follow my heart, my mind is a fine mind. My mind is a right mind. My mind is a clear mind. Clear mind. If I follow my mind, I'll never go wrong. I wanna sing that song. It wouldn't take so long. Never could do wrong. Hey, hey, if I follow my mind.
Jimmy Cliff, the great Jimmy Cliff, still around and still going strong with If I Follow My Mind. It's the title track from his 1976 album. And today we're going to be talking, well, you know what we're going to be talking about. No surprise to you, because you're on top of these kinds of things. We're talking about the great second debate, or as I call it, the Q&A. We had the first Q&A last month in June in Miami, and now the second debate is going to be at the Fox Theater in Detroit. Now, there are going to be still 20 candidates, so it's going to be a 2-night event because they can't possibly accommodate 20 candidates at once on a stage. So they've decided to break it into two, as was the case for the first debate. There's only one change, and that is because one candidate dropped out and has been replaced with another. I'm assembling some of my notes here. So what we're going to be talking about today is, as this event gets going tonight, what are your thoughts? What should we be looking for? What should our antennas be up in the air to pick up for? What are the major issues you expect to be explored tonight? Well, you know how I feel about these debates. I think they're silly in the sense that the candidates are not really talking to the people. They're talking at them, and there's a reason for that. This being the second of 4 scheduled debates leading into the presidential primary, they really don't want to raise any problems, raise any questions, or raise any issues. So everybody is, how like a walking race. You start off looking like you mean it, like you're really serious about it, but you are not going to spend all of your energy at the start of the race. You have to have a strategy. I haven't figured out, except, everybody would give you the same answer. Well, we're in this thing to win it. Of course, not everybody will win this race. There'll be one winner. But in the meantime, the candidates have to toe a very interesting line. They can't be responsible. Nobody wants to be responsible for getting into matters that would be considered touchy or controversial. Even though they want to look brave and they want to look, straightforward and forthright and all that other kind of stuff, and bold ideas, there won't be any bold ideas. For one thing, it's the second debate, which means the campaign itself is just kind of getting off the ground. And really, you don't want to create problems so early in the game. And if the problems are to be created, you don't want to be the one to create them. At the same time, you don't want to look like, well, you have nothing to offer. You don't want to look like you're dodging serious issues. So it's a fine line, because if you go out there and take on the burden of really talking to the people and talking about real issues to the people, well, you just volunteered yourself for suicide, because and now people will move away since they've got a winner. You'll be the one brave enough to venture out in waters where you will find yourself very much alone, and you will give everybody else permission to take you on because you're very vulnerable at that point. So it's a very interesting line that you see them walking, and I wonder how it's going to turn out tonight. Personally, I don't think these folks know how to debate. And this is for years and years. It's been a long time that we've actually seen a debate. They don't know how to debate. They don't have the art. As in many other countries, when you have a debate, that's what people are looking for. What are your points? Are you scoring any points? Are you introducing new ideas? Are you going after your opponents where they are weak on policy matters, for example? Nothing personal, but on policy matters, on institutional matters. How do you bring home to people watching this debate the fact that you identify with them more than any of the other candidates, and you're not just being flippant, that you have substance to your debate points, and so you go there. But like everything else in the United States that really matters, we are suffering from a depletion of talent and a general depletion of intellect. We don't see that. It is very rare that you see and hear a public official being substantive. And the flip side of that coin is that the public has been properly trained to expect little or nothing. And that's what they get. Never mind what they should get. That's what they do get. So the general standard, intellectual standard that many of us are expecting will just simply not be there. And we are kidding ourselves if we think that in watching a debate of 20 candidates, we will find a consistent theme that the candidates are engaged not only with an adversary, namely Donald Trump and his administration, but also engaged with the people on what we could loosely call matters of government. The assumption is people don't know much about government, so you're not going to have them using their time to now undertake popular education. That's not going to happen. So we are left with a decidedly middle of the road, because nobody wants to offend anybody, and no one wants to be the person to go out there and really engage with the people on matters that we talk about all the time. They'll touch on one thing or another, but they're not going to bring the level of discourse to the situation, the very situations and issues that they themselves are identifying. At the same time that they want to be known as bold and fearless, they're not willing to engage. They're not willing to take on the task of shepherding true criticisms in a debate. They're not willing to let us know what they're really thinking, what they really want to happen, why they really are the best possible leader for this country, especially given what we have. So today, let's talk about what you expect to happen in tonight's debate, knowing as we do a few items that should come into the discussion, who will raise them and why. And we have to ask ourselves questions about the party itself. This is also propaganda, don't forget. This whole thing is propaganda, and by that I mean that it is heavily weighted against the people knowing exactly what is happening and exactly what they propose to do about it. Because after all, after a debate like this, people have an afterlife. If they lose, they have a lot to lose. They still have to continue with their lives. If they win, now you open up a whole new chapter of responsibility in leadership. And as much as they want to be President of the United States, they are not prepared generally at this point to spell out the details of what the people should expect of them. Nor are they going to be critical of their own party in bringing to the people a level of leadership that has huge holes in it. They are vulnerable. And they're going up against Donald Trump, essentially, and his administration, which has spent an inordinate amount of time and money in the business of persuasion and in distorting the people's view. That's really what it is. So that unacceptable modes of behavior become acceptable and become part of the general, ingredients in the soup, indistinguishable from the soup itself. So whereas individually you may have an opinion about something, a negative opinion, when it's mixed up in a soup, you have to accept the soup. You can't pick and choose which ingredients you object to being in the soup. It's soup. They're presenting you a mishmash, and you either take it or leave it. And they're going to exercise as much influence as possible so that we take it. On a whole other level, for us, the people, we have to reconcile certain things for ourselves. Just how much of this crap are we going to take as being legitimate and real? How are we as citizens to react to people presenting themselves as leaders who we don't know a thing about? And we won't have a chance, except in carefully choreographed forums like this, we won't have a chance really to suss out from these candidates where their weak spots are, and we won't have a chance to carry to them our agenda and demand to know where, with regard to our agenda, where they stand. So don't look at the debates as a kind of a reality. They simply are a glimpse of how, at that level, people are thinking. What are their primary purposes? What are they pursuing? How do they intend to influence us? And what do they view as leadership? Which means, how do they see us as followers? Okay, so let's get started with our task today. And we're talking about where you think things are going to go tonight. And, in the very near future as we approach election day. But who is going to raise a question? Who do you think will emerge from this pack? And more so, not who, but what? What will emerge as the substantive issues that the candidates, i.e. the party, as a party, sees as priorities for the nation to wrestle with, and issues that supposedly they have particular skill and experience in, that they can tackle successfully and bring about change. What kind of change would that be? What are you thinking at this time as a prospective voter? What is your relationship to this whole process? And vice versa. What is the process? How is the process related to you? 888-874-4888 is the number to call to get this process started. Again, you always have hope that something really interesting will happen, but you expect that at this stage, people are still trying to figure out where they are and how they are to present themselves in a contest for national leadership and international leadership as well. What do you think the major issues will be as they talk tonight? And how is it aligned with what you see individually as major issues? Are they on point? Will they be confluent with each other? Would there be some kind of, you can see in what the arguments of some of the candidates, that there is a good alignment, or generally in the candidates, there's more misalignment with what the people are hoping to get addressed in a forum like this. Let's hear your view. And this is important because I talk all the time about the need for you yourself yourself to ascertain where things are. And on the basis of that, make your decision. But don't accept the packages being handed to you by either the candidates or the media, because they won't tell you necessarily what you want to know based on your keen interest, based on your keen observations. So let's start. Ron from Connecticut, you're on the air.
Greetings and salutations.
Hello.
Can you hear me okay?
No, we're not hearing you
Hello?
okay. You need to get close to the source of your microphone.
Hello?
Yes.
Can you hear me okay now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. My volume went down kind of by accident. It's clear to me that Congresswoman Gabbard will quickly emerge as the front runner. And I think they're going to do, they being the DNC, they're going to do everything possible to thwart her and frustrate her. I'm hoping she'll react by eventually going independent, running as an independent. But as of what I expect to happen here is I think they're going to block her and frustrate her with all the preset questions. She's got a little bit of a bump, a little ripple in her platform because I feel she's afraid of AIPAC. She's afraid of that lobby. She doesn't want to take on them or the Israeli administration prior to the election. I'm hoping she'll get a little bit more hard line, and because she's walking both sides of the fence right now as far as BDS. You know, she's telling people that they have the right to express themselves. On the other hand, she's addressing crowds of conservative Zionists. So
why does Tulsi Gabbard emerge for you as somebody who would make a difference in terms of what she might bring to her leadership? You mentioned her before in your calls, but why her?
Well, I'm a registered independent, but I'm going to switch at the registrar of voters in time for any Democratic primary, so I don't get excluded. I just wanted to say that. But she has basically all. I don't know if anyone else has seen this analogy, but I'm beginning to call her Wonder Woman. And she seems to be fearless and honest. Those are qualities that Bernie Sanders has, but I'd like her to distance herself from Mr. Sanders. I think he's just a little bit too sewn into the fabric of the DNC. As I said, she'll wipe the floor with anybody running against her for the nomination, and she's going to make that quite clear with this set of Q&As, if she hasn't already.
Does she have, in your view, does she have the base of support that would allow her to continue to be effective as an independent candidate?
Yes, despite all the attempts of the media to black her out. When I ask people if they've heard of her at the supermarket or wherever, they haven't. Have you heard of her? You know about Tulsi Gabbard? No. So I inform them on the spot, and I guide them to links. Once you're looking for her, she's there. She's all over the place. But I would think that she would wipe the floor with Trump in a way that would supersede even my assumption that Senator Sanders would have wiped the floor with Trump if he'd been allowed to.
What specifically do you think she brings that would sustain a candidacy?
Sincerity, no doubt. I mean, she just exudes sincerity. If you want to believe anyone out there is honest, she kind of fits the bill. You know, just in terms of impressions, not everybody knows a lot about her yet. And as I say, she's got a couple little ripple there, a little bump in her platform. But I think she'll straighten that out. She exudes confidence. She,
But is that enough? I mean, what is she standing for that you think, independently of everybody else who will be talking tonight, distinguishes her as a candidate worthy of consideration?
well, I'll try to stop being general after I say she's probably the truest progressive running for the Democratic nomination. So, policy-wise, she, I think everybody knows most of her points because she's not dodged the major issues.
Well, everybody doesn't know. That's the first thing. Everybody doesn't know her issues or anybody else's issues, for that matter.
The main issue,
the knowledge we have of her as a candidate, and this is one of the problems with these, the pack candidacies. Everybody's part of a pack. You don't get to know the candidates intimately and what their thinking is and how they propose to be different from what we have now. In what key ways is she different from what we have now and from what we have in the party?
So, from number one, the most obvious element in the room is she's peace. She's anti-war. She'll be called a non-interventionist.
But I want to be very careful. I don't want this time that we're spending together to be essentially an advertisement for Tulsi Gabbard. I just am trying to ask in a general way, as opposed to, why you endorse her. That would not be a fair thing to do to other people who want to speak today. But I'm asking the question in a generic way to get a sense from you as to how you have come to certain decisions. That's the whole point of the program today. You coming to certain decisions as opposed to proselytizing.
Oh, I've decided she will follow through on her promised platform. And there's only one other peace candidate. That would be ex-Senator Gravel. I don't believe any father or son Rand are running because they got to wait and see if Gabbard goes independent or not. I'm straying. Peace is what she's about. And Gravel and he's just in there. The people who want him to run just want him to bring the left back to the left. Bring it back to the left of center, because right now the left is to the right of center considerably. So he's the only other peace candidate who's running for the nomination. So that's number one. She wants to bring all the troops home from these interventionist and regime change wars and put those energies into where they belong. So, Trump promised that, and he will again. But this time, I envision Gabbard running against Trump and nobody believing Trump because he's proven himself a liar, saying one thing and doing another, saying 10 things and doing other things. So he will not stand a chance to passing himself off as a progressive again, as some kind of true populist.
Well, you got us started today. You got us started today, Ron, and I thank you very much. Let's see what other people have to add to what you have offered today. David from Brooklyn, you're on the air.
Good afternoon, Trace.
Hello.
I think this discussion that you have started requires some kind of analysis. I don't support any candidate, and so I won't be pushing for any particular person. I think it's important for all of us, all the people, to understand that these so-called quote-unquote debates and these discussions that people are having before this election are part of the game plan of those who run these two parties that are in charge. And I think it's very important for people understand the game works something like this. Candidates who are in these two parties, and in this case, the Democrat Party, can get up there and throw out some chum with ideas that they think a certain constituency of the voters would like. You can throw out what you think will go over. And, do hook in those people who you think will go for it. Well, that means nothing, because your goal is to win the office. And you know very well that those people in charge, and you know who that is, that's the ruling class who controls both of those parties. In this case, we're dealing with the Democrat Party. You have to throw out things that will go to the masses of the voters at the bottom, but you, with a wink and a nod, you let the ruling class know that, you want to maintain the status quo and let them win in terms of all the things that they have as benefits, the tax breaks and the wasting of all this money on military expenditures and so forth. So you have to do two things. So it's a balancing act. You talk the nonsense that you know either cannot be done under the present circumstances or will not be proposed after you get in. And as you look at your people who are giving you the big money people, you letting them know that everything is cool with you, with the banks and the insurance companies and the real estate interests and the major corporations. So you play the game that way. You let them know on the quiet, and when you're vetted by them, that everything is cool and they'll be all right. But you tell the people something, and you say things that some people might like, but you don't have to deliver on. And if you get in, you can always say, well, the Congress didn't do it or so forth. So it is a giant game. And there's certain things you can't talk about. You mentioned in the beginning that you're going to stay away from certain things. You can't make any critical remarks about certain countries. And you cannot do that. And the point is that this is a giant game, and I don't give my attention to just watching a game when I know everything is fixed. And if you want to know something, the things that people need to know, they're not going to talk about. For most of them, the big money, that's what you want to know about. Who is giving them the money? And that gives you a lot of information about where their brains are and what they're really thinking about. So if you enjoy watching a game, well, go ahead and look at the television idiot box and watch these people perform, but understand that it's nothing but a game.
Have you seen in your time as a political person, have you seen anything that comes close to a real bona fide debate that you recall?
I can't recall any bona fide debate. I think that is really close to impossible under this system. The only way that you're going to be competitive in this system that we have is when you play the people. You have to play the people, because the whole country is run not for the benefit of the mass of people who live in the country. It's run for the benefit of those who rule. So you have to play the people, even though the people don't control the parties. They give them an opportunity to pretend that they're in charge by having these votes every once in a while, even though things are really controlled by the people at the top. And, you got to realize that, because most people are duped into believing that little people going down and giving their one little vote is really changing anything. Things are controlled at the top, and all of us have to recognize that and identify the enemy. Most people do not know how to identify the enemy and don't understand the game that we are living in this particular country. This is a massive game, and the people are the ones who are being played.
How do we identify the enemy?
Well, first of all, we have to understand that the enemy is usually in the leadership position at the very top. And one of the big ways that we can understand that is that the enemy puts in a lot of dollars into those candidates that are running for these offices. And we have to identify that the enemy is so powerful that the people at I call it the second tier, the legislative level, are all under his control. And he does that by a legal bribe system called campaign contributions, and all the benefits that accrue to his the members in the legislative branch, to their families and friends, and what happens to them after they leave, who supports them. And there you have the enemy right there. It's right in front of your eyes, even though very few people talk about it. But a little research, you can find out who is doing things like that to control the people at the legislative and executive branch. And those people are the enemy. Those are the people that want your child to go and fight in their imperialist wars, not their children. That's why we don't have a draft in the country. And you see, so people have to understand that, the enemy is a very shrewd. He's able to make people function against their own interests on white supremacy, racism. That's one of the major things in his toolbox. And he controls the minds of people. He controls their schools, what they learn in schools, the false history lessons they learn. He controls at all levels their schools. He controls what they think when they look at the television and listen to the radio at the corporate radio station or read the corporate newspaper. He directs the minds where he wants them to go, and he gets practically no criticism from people because he always gives you the scapegoats for you to criticize. So the masses of people are confused. They don't understand the system. They don't understand the game. So this is part of the game. You have this show, this so-called debate, where people can tell you anything that is positive in terms of what you think you like, and yet not have to do it. But with a wink and a nod, they let the ruling class at the top know that everything is cool. They don't have to worry about anything that you tell the rest of the people, and it's safe for them. Business as usual, maintain the status quo.
All right. Well, that's an education in itself that you've offered us today. Thank you, David, for calling in. Ed from Queens, you're on the air.
Hello, Utrice. How you doing?
Okay, how are you?
I'm fine. Just one thing before I address your question. I hear what David says, and I hear a lot of people say that. And to me, it's becoming a cop out because the country wasn't always like this. And people, the fundamental problem with Americans, they're lazy. They want justice, but it's like Bob Marley song. Everybody want to go to heaven, nobody want to die. You got to suffer. You understand what I'm saying? Freedom isn't free. The price of freedom is vigilance, and this country used to have it. People didn't just wake up one day and say, "Oh, the powers that be, or who control, or who's in charge." Politicians used to be afraid of their constituency, and that's what needs to happen again. We see examples in China, we see examples in Puerto Rico, we see examples in France, but Americans they're too lazy to get up and put in the work to make the difference. And that's what it's about. Nature, look at nature. Current takes the path of least resistance. And as long as you give somebody the opportunity to take advantage of you and oppress you, they're going to do it. And that's the fundamental problem. This situation didn't happen in a vacuum. This situation didn't happen over a period of months or didn't happen. Trump is just the final manifestation of a system that has been entirely corrupt for entirely too long, in my opinion, since the days of Ronald Reagan, and nobody doing nothing about it. And that's the situation. And now you got to pay the price. And now you got to put in the work. And nobody wants to do it. That's the problem. When you got this thing shouldn't even be called a debate. It shouldn't even be watched. How dare you insult my intelligence by standing up 20 people in front of me with no clear policy, with no clear platform, with no clear vision, and expect me to undergo this game. You understand what I'm saying? It's a joke. And people got to get fed up and really start to resist. That's it. It's a joke, and it's a joke that's been played on people for so long to convince you that you have no real power. You have power, but you got to be able to manifest it. You got to be able to put some skin in the game, and that's what Americans don't do. They don't put any skin in the game. They cry and complain, but they don't put any skin in the game.
What would a debate, therefore, prove to you?
Well, a debate. This is not a debate. First of all, this is just 20 people, 10 one night, 10 the other, giving you the populist view of what they want to hear. A debate is primarily between two people or four people that have definite ideas and definite agendas.
No, you're getting some trouble in hearing you, Ed. You're fading in and out. What I would suggest, by the way, as you continue, is to listen to how you sound. Take a program in which you called in, listen to how you sound, and that might help you figure out what the problem might be, because you sound muffled still. And you go in and out.
Well, I have a new phone, so I don't know why. Is this better?
Oh, and now you sound better. So maybe it's a thing that you'll need to have somebody help you figure out what happens as you speak that makes you go in and out. You have very important things to say, and a lot of what you are saying comes across as muffled. We want to hear the clarity of your voice, but continue.
Well, no, what I'm saying is that, if it was missed earlier, Americans don't have any skin in the game. They're very lazy. They want, like I said, the famous Bob Marley song. Everybody want to go to heaven. Nobody want to die. You gotta. This is your government. This is your country. You have to take an active interest. Politics is not a spectator sport. You got to get into it, and nobody wants to put skin in the game, and it hasn't always been like that. I mean, a debate. First of all, this thing doesn't even qualify as a debate. A debate is where you can express issues and address policies and come out with your guidelines and your platform, and be able to have people judge it in context. This is just 20 people, 10 one night, 10 the other night, throwing out junk. And how can you can't even get a clear, concise idea of where they're at or who's in front or who. It's not even that. It's just that where's the substance? Where's the meat? Where are your ideas? What are your policies? I mean, yeah, I hate Trump. So what? You know what I mean? The guy, he's got a lot. He's got a lot. There's a lot about Trump that you don't like. But what are you going to do? I mean, how are you going to change what allowed Trump to become? That's what I'm talking about. I mean, you can spend your whole life hating somebody, but what are you doing to change to what gave that person the power? And then nobody's bringing that. Nobody's saying anything about that. A little bit here, a little bit there. But, you know, I'm tired of hearing about Trump. Screw Trump. I mean, whatever. Give me something. What are you going to do to stop the cycle of corruption that allowed this man to even become a political leader, a political novice to become the head of the country? Tell me how you're going to change that. Tell me what you're going to do about the water in Flint. Tell me what you're going to do about black unemployment. Tell me what you're going to do about reparations from my personal standpoint. Tell me what you're going to do about the economy. Tell me what you're going to do about the changing technological superiority that this country is losing. Tell me how you're going to guarantee the future. Tell me how you're going to stop all these hot summers. Tell me something that's going to do something for me, not this garbage.
Well, you took to heart the instruction of the day, and you are on point in answering. Thank you so much, Ed, for your contribution today. Gamba from Florida, you're on the air.
Greetings to all. And
Thank you.
I would answer the question of why isn't it a debate? And I would think, this is my summation of it, a debate is where a question is posed, and rather than deal with the symptoms, you find causation and come up with solutions. And it's very apparent in these shows that they're giving us as debates aren't really debates, they're just shows. When we sit and reason, we oftentimes, again, don't deal with causation. And as the gentleman prior to me highlighted there, we're dealing with the symptoms. What are the causations? And, you know, when you go to the doctor, the first thing he asks you when you tell him about yourself, he asks you about yourself. He wants to know your history. He wants to know your family's history. And what happened in the past and the actions that took place in the past are what determine what your situation is today. We oftentimes don't look at ourselves on the map of human history, as Dr. Clark often said. I was reading a book recently by a lady who wrote, it is called White Fragility. And she posited in it the 10 richest Americans, 100% are white men, 7 of which, or 10 of which are American, or 7 of the 10 are white Americans. The U.S. Congress is 90% white. U.S. governors, 96% white. Top military advisors, 100% white. President and vice president, 100% white. U.S. Freedom Caucus, 99% white. Current U.S. presidential cabinet, 91% white. People who decide which TV shows we see, 93% white. People who decide which books we read, 90% white. People who decide which news is covered, 85% white. People who decide which music is produced, 95% white. People who directed the 100 top grossing films of all time worldwide, 95% white. Teachers, 84% white. Full-time college professors, 84% white. Owners of men's professional football teams, 97% white.
What are you therefore pointing out?
unless we coalesce from the bottom in small nucleus or nuclei and gather our thoughts to recreate betterment for ourselves, as he highlighted, we don't participate in the game. As Ambrose Lane says, many of us don't want to engage politics, but politics engages us every day. The electricity that comes to our house, the water that comes to our house, the schools that our children go to, the roads that we drive on, the traffic lights that we have. So I go to these meetings, city hall meetings in a small city in Palm Beach here, and it's predominantly black. And all we do, as the gentleman highlighted, is complain. There are contracts there to be had. Get together, form a corporation, and apply for the contracts, thereby recreating an avenue of or an income stream, a stream where we can have income, and change our situation. And I'm not only saying this that black folk do it, but I work in a predominantly white environment. There are 30 of us, 4 of us are black. And I hear the same complaints. They sit and they watch Fox News and they watch CNN and they battle amongst themselves. But they have a support system and a white skin privilege that would allow them to navigate through this labyrinth that we live in America. As black folk, what are our solutions? My solution is, and I think I highlighted this before to you, Utrice, we have to sit with our families, our young men, our young girls, create small businesses, and strive for betterment from that point. So we could now influence our schools.
As a person watching this debate, presumably watching this debate tonight, what's in your mind, and how are you measuring the candidates?
I don't own a television.
Neither do I. But you could have access to phone and watch it.
I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to look at it. I really don't know. Because it's just more of the same, and it just frustrates me because they'll attack each other and nothing's changing. Dr. Claude Anderson, and there's something going out in the WhatsApp arena, and he says, and I agree with him totally. The situation that we as black people are in is because we don't have an economic component by which we can now sustain ourselves.
Well, that takes us to a whole other part of the discussion, but I wanted to be a bit more focused, considering that the debate is tonight, and we and tomorrow night, and we should have some kind of a palpable reaction to it, and how we see ourselves in this process, and that's what we're looking for today. You brought a lot to us today and put it on the table. I'm hoping that at some point very soon we can return to your subjects and kind of expand on them, because this is it's seminal to where we are as a nation and as individuals in this nation. We should have a fix on where we are. We should have a compass of some sort to guide us in our thinking and in our actions as well. Thanks, Gamba, for calling in today. E from Edgewater, you're on the air.
Good afternoon, Utrice.
Hello, good afternoon to you.
Yeah, I don't have a couple of minutes. This shouldn't be called a debate. A debate's usually there's an issue and you have two opposing forces. One's for the issue, one's against the issue, and they put their points out. And the ones who win the debate who put the points out better. This is just a Democratic Party trying to pick somebody that's going to represent them in the president race. So they're all just doing the same thing. It's just a show. It's not going to be a debate, really. I don't know why they call it a debate. Debate can come after when you have the candidate selected, and then he'll go up against Trump, and that'll be supposedly a debate. You know, like last time when Trump, all he did was make fun of Rubio and Ted Cruz and Bush, just make fun of people. That's what they do. They just, like, accuse people of something, and it's not really anything that we're going to get any substance out. I agree with David from Brooklyn. The whole thing is a game. And what's going to end up is Biden's going to win this thing. Bernie's going to go independent, probably take Elizabeth Warren as his running mate. Biden will pick either Kamala Harris or go off the board with Michelle Obama. That'll blow the boat out of the water. We might see a Biden-Obama team again. So that's the best way to expose a fixed game that they're playing on us. And it's going to go on for 15 months. So that's what we're
thank you.
Looking at.
I think you made some very important points. And the question is, is this a debate? I raised a question the last month at the very first round of debates. It's not a debate. Number two, people had said that they believed the fix is in terms of which Democrat will emerge as the party representative in the elections. I think there's merit to that argument. There certainly is a palpable sense that people don't understand the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party is out of touch. They have no real attachment to their base of support. And so people are confused as to what the party as a party stands for, which is why you run candidates under the banner of your party. But if people don't understand what the party stands for, and it seems as if the candidates then are free to commingle what they stand for as opposed to what the party stands for, then you have real trouble. But we still have to persevere. We still have to pay attention. And we still have to keep in mind, this is how it works. You very seldom have the opportunity to just pause and disassemble everything, or as much as you can, to see what the real picture is and how, even when you are unaware of it, the party and its apparatus have plans for your mind and plans for your actions and control of your mind. So this is why we're doing this. Thanks for listening today. Let's get together again tomorrow. And thank you so much for your contributions today. Bye-bye.
I never go wrong. I would have sing that song. It wouldn't take so long. Never could do wrong. Hey, hey, if I follow my